While we are in webinar mode, I will not, or none of us will be able to see you, but we certainly want to hear from you. So we just ask if you would please submit any questions or share any feedback that you have or aha moments, key takeaways in the chat. So think about that as a way that you can applaud for the panelists. So after the webinar today, we will post the recording on our website so you can download it and listen to it over and over again. If you've missed any of our other webinars this year, you can also go to our website and download and listen to those as well. Just want to remind you that we have our last one coming up in October, talking about top alarming and amazing leadership lessons. So that's going to be some big aha moments for a lot of people. Today is one topic that is near and dear to our heart at Tiller-Hewitt, because bottom line is, it's fundamentally impossible for any healthcare system or organization to continue to strategically grow without prioritizing physician retention. So in case you haven't heard, Tiller-Hewitt proclaimed 2022 as the year of the leader. At Tiller-Hewitt, we have the distinct pleasure of really having a front row seat, working with leaders from across the country. And we're humbled by their willingness to share their lessons learned, kind of the good, bad, and awesome. And that's how we all get better. These are some of the panelists or some of our podcast hosts this year. So you may recognize some faces and organizations that you work with or maybe compete with even. So we started the Year of the Leader by launching our leadership podcast, and it's really for growth-minded leaders. You can find it on our website at tillerhewitt.com/podcast, or you can find us on any of these platforms. And then last, for leaders of outreach programs or liaison programs or liaison teams, we still have 3 workshops coming up this year. Next week, we have a 3-day workshop for liaisons or liaison teams, and then another one in October. And then in November, we have a 2-day workshop for leaders of liaison teams. The mantra really behind our Year of the Leader is everyone wins when the leader gets better. Because when the leader gets better, everyone gets better. And so today we're going to talk about a lot of great ideas on retention and integrating physicians. And we know that some organizations just don't have the bandwidth or the budget or the resources for this. So we need to recognize sometimes we have limitations. So sometimes we're innovative and sometimes we have to be imitative. So we have to imitate what others are doing, proven programs and processes that work. And we hope you feel comfortable doing that with what we're going to share today. So this is who Tiller-Hewitt is. So I won't read this whole slide, I promise, but we're just all things strategic growth. We work with leaders, we work with healthcare organizations that want to consistently deliver strategic growth and measurable results. So we do that by way of operational assessments. We do a lot of process improvement work because, as you all know, it's entirely impossible to grow business and sustain it if there are constant barriers that are in the way. So all the bottom programs are programs that we use to implement strategic growth processes. And so today we're going to talk about the physician integration one because it is about rapid ramp up and long-term retention, whether it's a physicians or APPs. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. We have a liaison program that really is our core business and how we were started 21 years ago. And so this is where we either assess, launch, or manage physician liaison programs. And then we have a lot of training alongside that as well. And then we have Tracker Plus, which is our PRM that was built by and for liaisons. So it's an awesome system. If you want a demo, you could take a shot of that. I was just thinking my controls may be in the way as well too now that I'm on this screen. Is that correct?
Sure. We can see it.
Okay. All right, very good. So there's the QR code. If you want to take a shot of that, you can have a personalized demo, or you can join a couple of our public demos with other people from around the country. So I promise you I won't read this, but I want to just point out that a physician integration program can solve for a lot of different challenges. These are just the last 4 integration programs that we've stood up in organizations. And you can see the challenges are different. The top 2 were having rapid growth. So they wanted to make sure that they were onboarding these providers efficiently, that there was rapid ramp up for long-term retention. The third one where they were having difficulty recruiting because of the competition was so fierce. So we literally did 3 projects with Dayton Children's. We stood up a physician liaison program. Then we came back a few years later and did a physician integration or onboarding program. And then they recruited so many docs and built a couple of new towers that we had to expand their outreach team. And Kim's on the line today, who you'll talk to, who stood that program up and was actually a liaison there when we first started the program. And then the last one was all about having too many cooks in the kitchen. And that's exactly why they couldn't make things happen between Christus and Sound. And we were able to bring this program where they ended up winning the IBM Watson Award for the speed of improvement, the top 100 hospitals. So this program is one solution that can be customized to your particular challenge. All right, so at Tiller-Hewitt, our mantra is long-term retention starts way before and goes way beyond recruitment. That our goal is recruit to retain high quality, productive, engaged providers. And too often we see organizations that are still playing the numbers game. We need 5 of this, 10 of this, 20 of that. And it's more about the recruitment than the retention. We like to say that recruitment is the wedding, but retention is the happily ever after. And Kim's going to talk about the pre-survey when we launch a program and interview docs who have been interviewed or providers, APPs, in the last year or 2. And here's typically what the organization sees on the left, that the process is pretty seamless. But when we talk to the providers, their experience in some areas or another, including the family piece, look more like the right side of the screen. And so how you know that you may have a recruitment focused program or organization or culture versus a retention, if you hear anyone in this organization, in your organization, or you say any of this, if we recruit them, they'll be loyal. If we employ them, they'll be loyal. If we employ them, we own them. We should never, ever say that. If a provider ever hears us say that, it's really the beginning of the end, because they understand what the culture really is and how they're thought of within the administrative team. We don't own nurses, housekeepers, and we definitely don't own providers. If they need something, if they need something, they know who to call. That's a myth. They don't always know who to call. That's not true. No news is good news. And they would never sell out to our competitor after all we've done. All of those are myths that we should never hear ourselves saying or say those within our organization. We also need to remember that competition is fierce. In fact, statistics come out year over year about how many offers cross the desk of residents and other physicians. So you see here that 2/3 of residents receive over 50 recruitment offers. And also know, I don't know what kind of markets that you may be in, but 91% of residents say that they prefer to be employed by a hospital, medical group, or other facility. And if you're in a rural market, you're already at a disadvantage, because only 1% of residents say that they want to work in communities with populations of 25,000 or less. So when we talk about turnover, we have to remember that at year 2, research shows us is the peak time for potential turnover when our physicians and APPs become flight risk. Intuitively, you know, most employment contracts are rolling at that time. So they're starting to become aware of, do I still want to stay here? I can get out of my contract. And they have all of those offers coming. So you want to make sure you're backing this up and make sure you follow the process that we're going to talk about today, so that you stay in touch with your providers and you're not just being noticed when contract roll that they're out of there. And just so you know, the costs are well over $1 million when you lose a provider. And depending on their specialty, it could be much more than that. Now, when we do surveys, and there's been surveys done by many organizations, MGMA, AMGA, we've done it with MGMA. We did a survey a few years ago and surveyed 163 liaisons. So for the majority of you that are liaisons on the line, we asked the question, do you have an onboarding program? And 64% said yes. But when we ask about the term of the program and how long, you can see that it was a 1 day to 3 months was the majority, when the best practice is 12 months, which is what we're going to talk about today. And oftentimes when we're talking to organizations and asking, or leaders, and say, do you have an onboarding program? This is what they're really talking about, that they have an orientation program. And we estimate this at a multi-million-dollar mistake if you only have the wheel on the left-hand side, which is just the orientation part, going through HR compliance and the EMR training. Our program is what we refer to this wheel of fortune, where every circle on this particular wheel represents a team, a group, or an individual from these different departments or process or disciplines that are part of the onboarding process. We had well over 30 people on the team at Lake Charles, which we're going to talk about today. So now is when I would like to introduce to you our panelists today. And, we often I hear endlessly or incessantly, individuals will say, well, it's different in our community, or our market is different and unique. Well, I guarantee that you have not met someone that has come from such a unique market as Karen. So Karen Kleinman is the Director of Practice Management. She is also the Family Integration Specialist for this new physician integration program. And her community that she lives in is Lake Charles, Louisiana. And while they too were going through a global pandemic, like everyone else on the line, they also experienced in the same year, within several months, 2 hurricanes, 2 crazy hurricanes that they're still recovering from 2 years later. They did a historic flood and an unprecedented freeze. It doesn't freeze in that market. So they were literally awarded something that none of us want to be awarded. They were awarded the most weather battered city in the United States. So Karen, I'm sure many of you thought Jesus was coming next. That was what was next on the lineup.
We were ready for rodents and locusts and whatever else was going to be handed to us.
Right. Frogs flying, flying out of the sky. And Kim is our beloved regional manager, and she's also the onboarding specialist for Tiller-Hewitt. Kim also serves as the executive director of the Clinical Integrated Network at Dayton Children's. And so she and Karen work together to stand the program up that they're going to walk through this case study and show you. And, just like Tiller-Hewitt, we always try to stuff 90 pounds into a 5-pound bag. So we're going to give you way more than you bargained for today. But before we start, Karen, I would love to hear from an insider inside the organization. What was happening behind the curtain when you first heard this initiative was going to come and you started seeing all of these full day or several hour meetings blocked on your calendar? Please give us some insight.
Well, I've been with this health organization for over 30 years, and I have seen organizations come and go. So when I received the invitation and I'm going to be occupied for 2 days with Tiller-Hewitt, I am in this, okay, we've got another consultant du jour. This is great. More ammunition handed to us, more assignments handed to us on what is already a very full plate. Every single one of us, every single person who is listening to us has a full-time job. So to take on all of this is can be rather overwhelming. And so we sat there and we listened. And it was a very unique approach. It was very involved. And we, the participants, we, the members of this health system, were asked straight on, what is it y'all do? And what is it you believe you should do better? You pinpointed the elephants, plural, in the room. and then held us accountable when we were in total agreement. So it really was a much better approach, and you actually have results because you held us accountable, which, you know, when you see your name on a list and you are assigned something and you've got a time frame, you want your CEO, when he sees that list, to see your name on the accomplished side and not the still waiting to be done side.
Thank
So,
you, Karen, because we hear that from everyone. They're just like, nope, we do not want to spend this time to do this. And I love it how, you know, consultants kind of have a bad name. So we appreciate that you stuck with us through the process. So I'm going to talk a bit about that now, and then we'll circle back to you, Karen, because honestly, the role that you took in this was very unique. I mean, we always have a family integration piece, but you knocked it out of the ballpark. So we'll get back to that in a minute. So this is a lot of words on one slide, but this kind of it does overview the process that we go through probably in 4 to 5 months as part of our onboarding, orientation, and integration program. First and foremost, Tammy, you talked about the Wheel of Fortune on the right. These are the groups that we pull together. So it's not just a few people. It's a lot of people, because I always like to say everyone touches onboarding process, but not one person owns it. So it gets very disjointed very quickly, very easily. So when we come on site, the first thing we do is determine the baseline. So we look at data points. How long does it take you to ramp up a provider? We look at what your turnover rates are. So we get some data so that we can look at how you have improved when we're done integrating this program. Secondly, we do surveys and interviews. Very important piece. We interview the providers that have come on in the last 18 months to 2 years. I think at Lake Charles, we chose 2 years because they came on during unprecedented times, and we wanted to really honestly get a feel of what was onboarding like prior to a freeze, a hurricane, a flood. So we did interview a few more. Then we pull this amazing team together, and we always have a senior executive champion. Karen, you mentioned your CEO and not wanting to get on his bad list. I love your CEO there because he stood in front of the big, huge group on our first day when we were kicking off and said, this is important to our organization. This is the single most thing we need to get right, is onboarding and orientating and integrating our new providers. And that really holds a lot of weight for us and helps us as we take everybody through this process of accountability, again, as you said.
Well, it also helps. It also will help anyone who's on the line to know the importance of a senior executive champion, because people don't give you flack.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we always ask for a scribe or someone that can help us all keep organized. We establish our expectations. So we talked about those meetings. We're not lying when we say we pull the group together for 2 full days to do a lean process improvement. We assign roles and responsibilities and then create an accountability system. And that lean process improvement, to me, is probably the most amazing part of the whole piece, because we all come together in a room and we map out our individual pieces of the onboarding, orientation, integration process, if you will. And then we share that with each other. And that's where a lot of the, not only the aha moments happened, but also the, oh, wow, I had no idea that this is all that you had to do in this process. And you know what? I'm going to be a little less judgy about you in the future, because I realize that you have a lot on your plate, that it's not your fault that we're not getting this done because you're waiting on this certificate from this state department or whatever. So it really becomes a way to hear what each other is doing and start to have empathy for each other's jobs and roles. And I love that. That's probably one of the biggest things that we've taken out of almost every one of our processes.
Well, and Kim, if excuse me, but
yeah.
The other piece of this is those aha moments in that very room. We didn't realize how many different people were contacting the various providers and asking for the same information.
Yep.
So the provider is sitting in wherever he or she may be currently before they relocate. And of course, they're going, wait, I just sent that. Or somebody's already asked me for that. Can't the left hand and the right hand communicate? And so felt like we had been imposing and didn't come across as
Yep.
professionally and as together as we wanted to be.
And that came out in our surveys as well. Those usually that's one of the top things we learn in our surveys with the providers. And then I guess just to finish up this slide, move on, but I love that input, Karen, because that is so true. We build an action plan out of all the different things that we can see that might tighten up our process, like asking them for the same information, everybody. Where can we ask for that information one time and that's it? And then can we share that amongst ourselves so we don't have to bother then? And anything along those lines, we document that, we put it on an action plan. I think we had 100 action items come out of our 2-day session. And then we use that to develop what I call the master checklist. And that you each have your, and Karen, I know you had a huge checklist for your department, for your individual clinic, but we want to take what are the pieces of your department and your accountability piece for onboarding a new provider to a master checklist. So we know that there's maybe 12, 15 things that really need to be done by someone in the organization as the provider weaves their way through the orientation onboarding process. The other piece, so that becomes your accountability piece, by the way. We put that master checklist up into a shared location that everybody can get to and that everybody's responsible for reporting out to. And so you can quickly see who's not keeping up with their part of the bargain as far as keeping this process going. I don't know if we'll talk a ton about the mentorship program here today because we really want to focus on some other parts and pieces. But this is a key piece. And I know when we implemented this at Dayton Children's, the orientation, new orientation onboarding process, their senior leader at that time, their executive champion, said every new provider, nurse practitioner, PA, specialist, whatever, will be paired up with a mentor coming into the organization. And so that was a key piece for them. And that really helps that retention and full integration piece. So I think a lot of people try to institute a mentorship program, but it is one of the best practices for long-term retention you can employ. Yes, Tammy, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know the research shows everyone that when you have a mentorship program and you have an onboarding process of a year, that your retention rates go up. So there's research to document that. We have a physician mentor on our team that helps stand up the program, that trains the lead mentor, which is typically the chief medical officer or the vice president of the medical staff or president of the medical staff. They become the lead mentor in the organization and they manage the team of mentors and mentees. So it's a very formalized program that sounds easier than it is. It's kind of the swan process where things are paddling like crazy under the water, but the swan looks really smooth. But a mentorship program is key to your physician and your provider integration program. So that's all I'll say about that.
And in a minute, I know we're already halfway through, Tammy, but in a minute, we're going to hear more about this family integration program because we think that's another very key piece to long-term integration. But really this whole process, and I'm hoping right now that people on the line are starting to see, wow, we might not have the onboarding program that we need to have. Because it isn't just a few days of orientation and a few things. It's very comprehensive. And it really is designed to help everybody collaborate, coordinate, so that we're not duplicating. It keeps consistency from provider to provider. So we don't have one provider that had a great experience and another one that wasn't even noticed. And communication, which is obviously key. We talked a bit about those baseline interviews. These are the things that we ask the providers. I'll let you read through that. But one of the key things that we discovered out of this group, and it's not unusual actually, is that they feel like they're drinking through a fire hose. I know that slide is coming up, Tammy, but these are, I guess all I'll say is if you read through this, these are the things we ask the new providers when we do the baseline interviews with them.
Yeah, so we're asking about all of their experience around recruitment, relocation, the credentialing. That's where we find out everybody is asking them for the same thing. How was their orientation? That's what Kim said, drinking out of a fire hose. Was the practice ready for them? I can't tell you how many times I was very pleased that we didn't hear it at Lake Charles, that many providers have told us that they do not believe the practice knew they were coming. I mean, that's borderline criminal. It's total malpractice, but we want to know about their experience with the liaisons. Have they been set up with a mentor and has their family integrated? And then Kim asked here, which was awesome, that the chief medical officer send out a personal thank you letter to every physician and APP who participated on this pre-survey. It was about a 45-minute online interview between somebody at Tiller-Hewitt and the provider. But I like liaisons. You should like this, that how the CMO really highlighted the liaisons and how they will be following up with them in the future. And again, teeing them up and their role within the organization.
That's right, Tammy. And I guess the other thing I would say is that some things came out of those interviews, some issues right away came out of those interviews. And so we had stuff for the liaisons to follow up with. And that closes the loop for these providers. Wow, they really are listening to what we're saying. Right. We heard in the beginning about these surveys that Tammy's done on a national level, and even as we visit other places. And guess what? At Lake Charles, the similar picture is here, where best practice is up to 12 months, but you can see that wasn't what they thought it was at Lake Charles. That really they thought the onboarding process was 1 week. That's where we get the drinking out of the fire hose, I think. Mm-hmm. So this is just a quick visual, if you will, for the visual people out there, that talks about the steps that I kind of already went through, and the timeline. I think we talked about the fact that it would be 3 to 5 months of a process. And again, at Lake Charles, we found up to almost 100 action items that we worked through during this time that we were with them to eliminate and make that process better and streamline everything for the new provider.
So we had every person, every team create their own value stream map. This happens to be the map that came from the IT department that they did seeing how many people within IT touch a new provider. They each map the process and how it's connected. But every one of these bursts were improvement opportunities that they were able to identify as soon as they drew out their process. So they already knew their process. Not many other people knew exactly how they were doing it and working throughout their department. But these were, I don't know how many there are, 7 of the 98 came right here from the IT onboarding piece.
I love it. It looks very technical, but it's really very it's very easy. It's very common sense, if you will. Yeah.
And we were there helping lead that lean event. But it was awesome how everyone was creating their own map and then collaborating between. And then each department would then present their map. And that's when Karen was talking about earlier, her aha, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were doing that. And Kim said, we have a better appreciation for what others are doing. This is one of the best team building exercises, I believe. Although it's an operational process, it really does come down to team collaboration for those 4 C's. And then Kim, here's your baby on the master checklist.
Yeah.
Shared
I love this because people assume a master checklist is going to be a million things, and it really does get to the top things, again, that each area on that wheel is responsible for sharing with someone else in the organization so that their job can be done. I like to think of it as passing a baton. I did my part, I'm passing it on to you. You're passing the baton to your colleague to make sure that everything goes smoothly for the onboarding of that provider. And this is typically a very customized checklist for each organization that comes out of all of the work and collaboration that we do.
So you're going to have one piece that's a shared directory where all the information is the same. And I guess that's this then too, right? By each of the departments, what they got, because then you roll back and then practice management has a list this long.
Correct.
When they're back in their own department, but this is something that's shared across the entire team.
Right. And I love how you can see at the top, we have the new providers' names and what their credentials are. We have who their mentor was assigned to them, who their liaisons are assigned to them, and where they're going to be practicing. So again, everybody knows this information. Karen, I'm sure you know many times a new provider comes on and you're like, are they going to be at the hospital, at our north location, at our south location? Where are we putting them? Where are they practicing? No one ever knows. So lots of information shared here for everyone to see in a shared location. Love this. This is the key piece here.
We got one question from Stephanie. At what point in the process are the baseline interviews completed? Is this completed via survey platform, face-to-face Survey Monkey, or email? So thanks for that question. We do all this before we go on site the first time, because when we launched the the onboarding and integration team, we want to be able to give them the feedback from the providers who have joined their organization over the last 2 years. So we come armed with that information. It's done on the phone on an interview, and we are logging it into Survey Monkey on our side so that it's tabulated immediately. So we've created this survey with all of those questions or those question categories that we talked about. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
Yep.
So just know on this particular document, sometimes it's a Google Doc. Some organizations have their own SharePoint, share directory, share file. There are different names. So within your organization, whatever that shared directory is, that's where you would house this particular worksheet, as well as attachments like their photos or copies of their CV.
Yep.
So let's move on to the new provider orientation. Kim mentioned that the feedback almost 100% of the time from providers is the orientation was not memorable, but it was like drinking out of a fire hose. People just come in, they show up and throw up about their department and their organization. Many people don't come prepared with documents or business cards or any kind of written material that they can come back. So it's very overwhelming. And what they remember is that, not anything specific that they need. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you revamped your provider orientation program, Karen, and the feedback that who does it and the feedback that you get?
Well, one of my peers, one of the other directors here, and I talked about how the physician would come into our practices and still have all these questions that we thought had already been addressed. And she, Dana Talbot, actually is the one who started this by every time somebody asked a question, she put it into a format so that she could ultimately distribute it to the physicians. So that was really the groundwork for the providers in general. That was really the groundwork. And then marketing took it and really ran with it. Our marketing department was so incredibly supportive. And they made this great binder, anything and everything you would ever want to know, anything and everything that we could possibly think of. And that way they had a reference. It's electronic as well as in a paper form. Yep. And that way they know exactly where to look and who to ask and how to get the information they need. No way can one person come on board and learn and retain all of this at once. It's just impossible.
Karen, the thing I love about this too is that you mentioned all the ways they could get it, but the liaisons were part of the onboarding process and initially presented this in person to the new provider. So that gave them their first face-to-face with them to build that relationship. So I love how you use the liaisons here, which is best practices in that process.
Well, the liaisons have turned out to be something we didn't know we really needed until we got them, and I would really not want to do any of this without them. They are golden for us, and I am very grateful, but they really do set the stage. And then, of course, these providers who land in practices with us are going to still have some questions, but we also know that the reference is there for them.
Right.
And I think, Tammy, you've got some examples of some of the work our marketing department did. Yeah.
So let me interject for a second. So literally at new provider orientation, the liaisons are going through this slide deck, correct?
Yes, correct. Absolutely. And step by step.
And we have I don't know if we entered the schedule, but there's also then time where other people are coming in throughout a few days, but it's not drinking out of a fire hose anymore.
It's not this round robin tag, you're it, hurry up, you've got 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. So you guys, we're going to go through this very quickly, but I just wanted to give you this so you could screenshot this or to see what all was included. So we fly through these slides. So, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's that. And then Karen, you can take it from here.
Well, we've got our services. We have multiple locations, which can become very confusing. And everybody has acronyms for all things hospital and healthcare related. And some of them they're taught in medical school, and some are just right here and pertain to our organization. So how unfair is that you expect them to know that right off the bat? Right. So we've given cheat sheets, we've given pictures and titles and locations of where the key players are. Parking, I'm sure no one else has this problem, but parking is just a nightmare. And so as you see, we've got all sorts of help so that they are in the right place at the right time. Service excellence, the way we treat our patients, we want our providers to understand that is key here. It is huge. We want it to be an important part for them as well. And they need to know our mission and our vision. Emergency codes, believe it or not, over the years, there have been a few added and a few colors changed. When we've had emergencies throughout the state, like a hurricane, we want to make sure all of us are on the same color and on the same code. So it's good information all the way through this packet. Medical exec committee for that year, house supervisor, certainly physician dining. If they are part of a given department, there is special information in there for them, but if also as they refer to other departments, other specialties, they need to know how to do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how we made it without it before this.
Okay, so you can see all that. What I love about it is I'm going to go back to this one about the medical group. I'm not sure what the timing is on the slides, but when we talk about what specialties they have within their medical group, everyone out there, this is a huge miss that we see way more often than we should, that physicians and APPs do not know who their colleagues are within their own medical group. So this starts the conversation about all the specialties without giving them names. And then when the liaisons do their part, they're handing out the medical staff roster, the medical group brochures, the quick reference guide phone numbers. So this is one piece, and then there's other pieces going on from the different disciplines and departments that come in. Now, not everyone has the luxury of having a marketing department that does whatever it takes to support new providers coming in. They're busy with other things or whatever the excuse of the day is, but this marketing department is in full support of new provider promotion, orientation, and these are the collateral. So if I were you, I would come up with a menu that you can show providers. That's something else that we often hear in the pre-event surveys with physicians who came on was they promised they would market for me and now they expect me to do it. I don't have a marketing degree. I don't know. So this is a full menu that they talk about, outdoor and indoor and print ads and social media ads and what they do. They do videos and they play the videos on social media. On the landing page for the medical group, they show videos. Everyone likes to hear videos and hear the provider talking and articulate their thoughts. So all of these are part of the menu, and marketing takes care of everything, the videos, the loading of it, and they work very collaborative with the practice management team. Here are the rack cards that the liaisons use. They're part of the referral guide to show how to refer to the different specialties. So this is a very comprehensive approach at promoting the new providers. So anything you want to add to that, Kim and Karen?
Yeah, I do want to add before Karen talks about the creme de la creme of what they're doing at Lake Charles, that many times this is a key piece for retention too, because if the providers aren't ramped up and busy, I've heard you say this many times, Tammy, you hire a thoroughbred, a workhorse, they want to get in, they want to be busy. And when they're not, they're probably going to say bye-bye. And so this is key to getting those providers, not only the love, but getting them busy quickly.
Yeah.
Well, and you told them that there was a need, whatever the specialty is, you told them there was a need.
Right.
And now you're just going to sit them in an office and nothing happens. So Our marketing department has been incredibly essential, along with, and one more time, the liaisons are right up there with them, making sure that the materials are distributed appropriately, that they are in every clinic. I have in my cardiology and in my behavioral health clinics, there's materials on all of the other Memorial Medical Group providers, so that that information is out there. While someone is sitting in your lobby waiting to be called back, they can see these materials. They can know, oh, I didn't know that they had an OB-GYN as part of the Memorial Medical Group. That's good.
Who speaks Spanish? Yeah, who can speak Spanish, and also QR codes. If you all aren't using QR codes all over the place, you need to. Now that everybody's used to using their phone in restaurants and downloading menus, people are used to the QR code. You want them on your maps, on your rack cards, on everything, so patients will have it on their own personal devices.
You stole Karen's thunder.
It's all good.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Oh my
gosh. Okay. I thought she was going to talk about that on something else. My bad. Okay. So let me just tell you this. I need to give some kudos to Karen, because never before in all of the integration programs that we've done have we ever had a family integration program stood up this fast, this comprehensively than Karen's. And what I didn't realize, because I didn't know her that well when we first started, in fact, I didn't really know you at all, but now I've had the privilege of working with you. I challenged her to stand up the best. I mean, she stood up to the challenge and she made it happen. So let's talk about the family integration. You know, I mean, just from a kind of a little bit of a hillbilly, you know, we always talk about if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, it's whoever the partner is, the husband, the wife, the partner, whomever, and they often get left behind, the family piece of it, until we hear the provider come in and say, we're going to be leaving because my wife or my whomever doesn't like it here, because no one was paying attention. Well, Karen changed that at Lake Charles. So Karen, talk to us about your family integration program.
Well, the truth of the matter is, if any of you out there ever moved to a new community, you know what that is like. And so the provider is being well cared for, lots of attention on the provider. And the provider, their new world is their hospital, their practice, etc. So the family is left holding the bag. Here we are, we're trying to get settled in. There may be schools, there may be houses of worship, there may be all sorts of things that are important to the family, and now they're out there on their own. Well, I remember moving to this community, and I remember my sweet mother-in-law who wanted her daughter-in-law to be happy while her son worked full-time. So she gave up a lot of what she did on a regular basis to make sure that I got acclimated to my new community. And just like the mentor program, there needs to be a buddy program for families. So what I did is I interviewed those who have joined us over the past year. I interviewed not only providers, but senior administrative members, as well as their spouses, because spouses will tell you honestly what they had to go through to make it all seem so perfect when provider or senior management person came home at the end of the day. And I learned a great deal. I thought we were approaching this the way we should, but we learned so much from these people taking the time and being brutally honest with us about what balls got dropped. I'll give one example. One example is we make sure that they're given a perfectly beautiful tour of the greater Lake Charles area, and we show them houses. Well, more and more people are more interested in renting. They want to decide what part of town they want to live in. They want to decide, do they want to build or do they want to buy? So we had left out that whole rental component until someone mentioned that to us. They are dealing with so many dominoes that are falling in wherever they are, trying to line everything up just perfectly. It would be really nice if they had somebody on the receiving end that they could call and ask questions of. So we have a great team. That day, that infamous day where my hand was raised in the air, voluntarily or involuntarily, however that worked out, I quickly said to the room of people, okay, I'm going to need people on this team. And immediately people were raising hands or texting me and saying, I want to work with you. And interestingly enough, when it all settled out, the people who were on my team are the 2 liaisons, our recruiter, our provider recruiter, marketing, our residency program. These are incredible people who have stepped up. And although they have their own roles, onboarding and orienting and recruiting, they wanted to be part of the family piece as well. And this has been very, very important to all of us. The materials you are looking at, because one size does not fit all. You have families of children, no children, singles who are bringing their significant other, their fiance, their whomever with them, more than one opinion on the community and whether or not they will relocate their lives here. And so we want to make sure that we fit into all of that. So we have a welcome letter and a hello, here we are, we want to be your best bud. And then throughout the packet of information, both print and electronically, we have information that we believe would be important to them about our community. Community volunteer organizations, community events, QR code. Please don't reinvent the wheel. You have organizations out there who have great websites, who keep those up to date, QR codes, those families, spouses, even your providers can see all that is going on within your community, and it helps sell, so to speak, your community. Houses of worship are all often one of the more important things, along with schools. And so you can see here that we have lots of information on schools because they're making decisions on how to educate their children. And often they are bringing children, taking them out of a school wherever they were that they loved, and we want them to be in a school here where they make friends and are part of that school family. Pets. Almost everybody we've talked to, pets are so important and are integral members of that family. So they want to know that we have dog parks and we have good places to house a pet if a family goes on vacation, dog walkers, good veterinarians. So we have all of that information at hand. And I have to tell you that having been here 30 plus years, I have learned so much about my community as I have gotten into this. It's been rather exciting because I love my job and I love what I do, and I spend a lot of time here. And so I don't always know exactly what's happening out there. I'll be very truthful about that. And so finding out all of this, and this is post-hurricane, this is post-weather battered. What we had going on before and how fast we have bounced back is something else that just makes me so proud of our community, and I want to represent it well. And of course, our marketing department did just such an incredible job. Each page, each topic page has different pictures, local pictures on the page to help represent our area as well.
So I have a few comments and questions. Number one, on your real estate, when people want, you discover that people want to rent as they decide where to live and what to buy. We did get a couple comments from your survey about their real estate tour and how the real estate agent just assumed they wanted to spend a mega amount of money on a house and only showed them these really fancy, big, and in his description, unaffordable. So we also need to make sure that you're staying in collaboration with your real estate agent or whoever is taking them on a tour to understand what they're looking for and never assume they're a doctor so they have lots of money and want to spend a lot of money on a house. I love what you said about how you immediately, when you volunteered or were voluntold about taking over this job, that you immediately asked people to participate. Everyone remember, you need to ask. People want to be asked. And I love how so many people raise their hand. My next question about that is, are you planning on getting a community person outside the organization onto your team?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you. I actually have already done that.
Okay, good.
One of the what we did is we have several boards, and so I knew those people were already on board with our organization and supportive of our organization. And so I went to some of them, and we have involved them not just in this family integration, but also in the recruitment piece. That has been very beneficial. So yes, thank you for bringing that up.
I'm glad, because I was hoping that was your answer, because I knew you were working on it, but everybody needs to get community people involved. And to your point, Karen, from recruitment all the way through retention. And my last question is, because we're running close to time, is do you assign an individual to each of the families so they have a one contact person like we do docs with the liaisons?
Yes, we do have a buddy system.
Okay.
For lack of a better name, and I'm open for a better name if you've got one. We do have a buddy system, but the other thing we have is we've established cadences. I know that the liaisons have their cadence of how often they visit, how often they contact the providers, etc. Well, so does our recruiter, and so does our committee.
Awesome.
One of the things that can happen in recruitment is, for example, my cardiology group is interviewing someone who is not available until 2024. So obviously, if this individual decides to join us and makes that decision this far in advance, then the cadence of contact for someone who's 2 years out is going to be a little different from the cadence of contact for someone who's going to be starting, say, January 1.
Right.
So you kind of have to tailor that to that arrival date.
So I love that it once again supports one size doesn't fit all. We want to systematize the process, but we don't want to cookie cutter it. So that's, it's that balance. So this is the summary, but I'm going to open it up for questions for the last 3 minutes because we have a few questions. One person said our area real estate agents are now unwilling to give our community tours. Is anyone else struggling with this? This is the first I've heard of that.
I that's crazy.
We've been very fortunate.
Yeah, so we'll allow somebody to put in answers to that. And so that's super unfortunate. And what I would do about that is I would create someone inside or find a community person who's passionate about your community. And there are a lot of people who would volunteer for this, would literally eat it up. The next question is, what does family integration look like? I'm going to take down the share so everybody can see your faces. So did I take down the share? I just don't want to assume anything anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does family integration look like for the providers who are already locally? So Karen, like your residents who have already lived in the community for a long time, what do you do there?
Well, some of the physicians and their families who have been here for a while are part of this new and improved program, if you will. And so whether it's the wives or husbands of the providers or teenage children of the providers who've had really wonderful experiences or who want to have an opportunity to meet new people. We have not formally put together a program for them yet, but we certainly can make that a little more structured.
Yeah. So bottom line, I would say everyone needs to be touched to ask if they want it. There
Right.
were a lot of people who we asked about in this pre-survey, did you have a mentor assigned to you? And they're like, well, I've been here for 3 years going to the residency program, so I don't really need it. But there were a few nurse practitioners who said, I've been here for a while, and yes, I would still like a mentor because my role has changed. So you always just want to ask. To your point, you know, earlier, how you ask people to be involved in your program, I would do the same about asking them if they need help with the family integration piece, and let them know what the program looks like. That would be my recommendation. So the last question we have is, our organization covers such a large geographic area. I would love to speak later about ideas as to how to scale the family integration information. Yeah, Jennifer, call me anytime, but do you guys have any comments you want to make about that? Well,
my comment would be, you know, with what we're doing right now, Teams and all of the virtual opportunities and QR codes, you might want to just pull people from the different communities to join your team, and do the same thing that Karen did, is explore and learn and find out all of the opportunities. And then you really need someone to pull it all together. But
yeah, it's kind of a rinse and repeat based on that community.
Yeah. And that's your one size doesn't fit all, right? I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Perfect example.
Yep. Let's see. I think we answered all of the questions. Yes, I think that's it. So I want to just thank everyone. I want to thank our panelists. You guys are awesome. I love hearing about the program. It makes me want to start all over again and do it again. We had so much fun. If anybody has any questions or needs as it relates to their physician integration program, please don't hesitate to call Tiller-Hewitt, or visit our website at Tiller-Hewitt.com. Thank you so much, everyone.